Man, I'm out of this, fam. So that was kind of the spark to say I'm done with rap. So at that time too, it was like we were still in the thick of things. They was like, bro, you done rapping? I was 26 or something, like 26, 20. Like, you done? Like, you Mac? Like, what you talking about? You done? Like, we just starting to turn back up. I was like, I'm out. And so at that point, you mentioned Diamond.
Why ain't I see you round back when I was down?
So talk to me about healthy hip hop and what made you pivot all the way from the gangster rap, the street life, and going into this positive direction.
Straight up, well, it was becoming a dad. So basically, man, I was transitioning out of Midwest side, but I still put out another project under just Chop It Up. So I went back to full time, just Chop It Up records, because I've always had that even before I joined forces with Diamond. And kind of what you were saying, that was a little bit of my journey was, okay, I'm figuring out how to print up a CD. I'm figuring out how I'm going to monetize this. Okay, I'm going to start getting some radio play and new travel, the distribution. I was figuring that side of it out, right? And then what happened is in the midst of that, my guys who I was rapping with, the Chop It Up clique, like getting Riv P, the crew Mac 90, I had a whole gang, is that they weren't understanding the business side of it. So basically, I'm putting up all the capital, I'm hustling, a lot of the money, a lot of CDs I'm getting them, they're not giving me the money back. So it was like, when I connected with Diamond, I kind of seen a way like, okay, well, he's the money man. I can now transition into like really pushing my music, still turning my hustle up, but I got somebody who can really back this. So, was deep in that, got out of that, went back and put out my own record. I put out Royalty. I put out a couple of Royalty, For Much. It was a few other joints. But fast forward, I had my son like during that time too. I had my son in 04 and he's 20 now. And really wanted to be the dad for him I didn't have. So I was hyper plugged in with him and I picked him up from school one day and he in the back seat rapping the Mac James, just spitting it like he's like 3 or 4 years old, but knew the words and was, because we had been riding to it. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, I'm looking at him in the backseat like, and I just almost like had a flashback of my experience with hip hop as a kid and just like, I was like, man, I'm not gonna be this kind of influence on my son or anybody else. Matter of fact, I remember we was riding, I had a Black and Mild lit at the time in the backseat, had the black, we riding, it was in the Benz. And I was like, man, I threw the black out the window, I turned it off. And I was like, man, I'm out of this, fam. So that was kind of the spark to say I'm done with rap. So at that time too, it was like we were still in the thick of things. They was like, bro, you done rapping? I was 26 or something, like 26, 20. Like, you done? Like, you Mac? Like, what you talking about? You done? Like, we just starting to turn back up. And I was like, I'm out. And so at that point, you mentioned Diamond and the faith part. We always talked about God, but I knew God, but I really wasn't like living like I knew God. And so at that time, I said, look, I'm just focusing on getting in the word of God and I'm focusing on my family. And as I did that, like God gave me this vision back of like healthy hip hop. I was like, do it for the kids. And I'm like, okay. And so I immediately just started producing like these kid hip hop records. It wasn't even called healthy hip hop. It was like hip hop records for kids, but it sounded like the streets. Like, so my dude was like, man, what this wheels on the bus is going crazy? What is this? And so that was kind of the transition. And then when it started with the music, I dropped that first project, had my son on the cover with the headphones on, called Listen and Learn. And, we started, CDs were still a thing at that. So it was like 2010. So this is like the last leg of CDs. So I got back out to my usual hustle, but then we had like the city had bought like a few cases, a few thousand. I had different organizations like, we want this for our kids, link after school programs. And so those started moving. Then we started finding traction in the school. So they were like, we're using healthy hip hop like for enrichment for like movement, dance, social, emotional learning, et cetera. I'm like, okay, so I'm paying attention to what's happening. How can I, again, kind of meet that need and make the pivot? So we started creating some curriculum around it. Eat, Write, and Exercise was the first curriculum we created. So it started with the curriculum and then we started scaling. We started doing a lot of live events. So we were performing in these schools. We were doing at one point like over 250 shows a year. So you mean some weekends, you talk about Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we out at 10, 1, 3, 7, like doing like everything from, birthday parties to performing for the Chiefs to whatever it was. And then we started doing like more regional stuff. Big picture was like, okay, I'm thinking as a businessman too, like, I don't mind doing this. We getting out the mud, but I'm not about to be dancing in schools for the next, 10 years. Like, how do we scale this? And so that's when we started thinking about the technology side of things. And this was a whole new world for me. And one of the stories I haven't got to talk about a lot, but the pivot to the tech side also came from a big rejection. So we pitched on Shark Tank. And so what happened with that was, as we were growing the business, getting big traction with the shows, getting the curriculum going, again, the big picture is to become this iconic children's brand, the Urban Disney. And so we were pitching. I was doing some different programs in KC, some different like entrepreneurial stuff. And then I found out about Shark Tank. And everybody's like, you should go on Shark Tank, or you should talk to Oprah. I'm like, you gonna plug me in, fam? You got Oprah's email. But with this one, I did, just like we were just talking about when you were saying offline, is about finding the information and shooting off the emails or sending off the packages. I found on Shark Tank's website, this was 2014, 2015, right? So we had been doing since 2010, started picking up the music, the shows. So around 2014, 15, about 4 or 5 years in, like, how are we gonna scale this thing? We started creating the curriculum, started creating this kids' television property. I found the Shark Tank information, and it had an email submission. So you could submit an email, or they were doing this live casting call at that time at Houston, Rice University. So I told my guy at the time, I said, listen, I'm gonna put this email in, but if they don't respond, we driving to Houston to go do the casting call. So I put the email in, and they actually called me back. So we had got wrapped up a few shows in the town. And right after I got a call, and the zip area code popped up, and it was LA. So I'm like, this is Roy. And they're like, yeah, this is Shark Tank. Can you tell us about, your business model? I'm like, absolutely. So I broke it down. Fast forward, we went through all this strenuous process to get that pitched on Shark Tank. Closed a deal with Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful. I don't know if some people are familiar with the show or not, but he's one of the hardest sharks to close. And it was a $500,000 investment for 50% of just our kids' TV property.
Wow.
But we knew, like he knew, it was gonna be the Shark Tank effect, and we were just like, let's do the deal. We want to get this national exposure, because more important than the deal was the national exposure. At that time, Shark Tank was kind of at its height. Yeah. It's kind of on decline now, but it was at its height. And airing on Shark Tank was like $3 million in ad space on ABC, pretty much. That's what it was equivalent to. So we do the show, got the deal. Here in LA, we hype. I'm talking about it's about to go down. So we just waiting on the call, because we're gonna do a whole, viewing party and everything in KC at the Kaufman Foundation. Finally get the call. We had filmed in September of 2015. Got the call in March of 2016. So this was 6 months later. I'm like, man, what's up? I'm trying to wait. So I get the call. I see the number again, LA. I'm like, this is Roy. They're like, yeah, I want you to know you guys did an incredible job, but unfortunately your episode's not gonna air.
Wow.
I'm like, bro, heart fell to my foot. I'm like, well, they gave me some BS. They was like, oh, the slots got full. And they do tell you at the gate, though, they have full rights to, like, they can air your show, they can shelf it. Like, it's on them. You just signed everything away. So I emailed Alex Kinjeev. Alex Kinjeev is the CEO of O'Leary Ventures. He was at the time. I don't know if he still is, but he was at the time. And that's who we started our due diligence with. Because when you're doing these investments, again, it's a whole new world I'm learning about. It's these due diligence where they want to see the numbers, the financials, they want to see your business plans, et cetera. So I hit Alex. I'm like, Alex, can we get on the phone? I want to talk. And I'm like, man, at least hopefully our deal's on the table. And he's like, Roy, yeah, give me a call. Let's talk. So we talked the next day. And he's like, listen, can I talk to you off record? I'm like, yeah, of course. He's like, well, you guys got fucked. And I'm like, what you mean? He's like, well, ABC, the network that Shark Tank comes on, is owned by Disney. And they looked at your children's programming as competition. So welcome to Hollywood is what we were told. So they pulled the plug on us. So the best and worst validation is like, okay, we're on to something. Yep. They see it, but we lost the exposure. Like, the deal was one thing, but it was the national exposure. Right. So saying that story to say that was the point to where, again, at that time, so it's sink or swim, right? So my business partner at the time, he sunk. He was like, bro, that was a huge, that was a blow. I can smile about it now, but that was just like talking about mountain high to valley low.
Yeah.
We own to like, we in the trash can. You know what I'm saying? So basically, you know, after that, he bowed out, but I was like, okay, what's the next play for us? And so that's when I got into the tech space.